I took a look at all of my greatest career moments, all the successes, working with Fortune 500 companies, working with startups, working with brands like Target and Aflac and Capital One. And I realized that there was something very similar across all of their best case studies, which was they didn't try to sell. They didn't try to market. Instead, they did something entirely different. They fascinated. And so I took a step back and I started studying this. I wanted to understand exactly what is it about that decision-making moment when you present something to a potential customer that they could say no or they could say yes. What can you do to get them over to the yes? What can you do to make somebody immediately pay attention, to listen, to remember, and to act upon your purchase decision? And what I found are there are very specific triggers. I call them triggers. They're instruments. They influence behavior very specifically. And if you can figure out the part of the brain that goes from saying, I wonder, I'm sort of interested, maybe I'll buy it, maybe I'll think about it. If you can figure out how to hit that, you immediately shortcut to the part that says yes. Fascination is the shortcut to persuasion. It's the shortcut to increasing prices, to selling more, and to developing connection. And what I found in my research is that there are exactly seven of these triggers. Power, passion, mystique, prestige, alarm, rebellion, and trust. So I want you to think about your own business. I want you to think, what's that thing, that experience, that moment, that emotion, that feeling, that connection that you can create with your customers, that you can give to them so that when they leave, they want to go and they want to talk about it and they want to share about it and they want to praise it, and they are going to have an intense experience that is fascinating. I want to teach you how to do this so that you're not just selling the product, you're not just selling the service, you're selling something more that people will pay more for, that they will search you out for, and that they will talk about, and that they'll remember.
In all of our communications and all of our messages, there are very specific things that cause us to immediately snap focus. Immediately, it's not only predictable, but it's controllable. And when you can figure out how to harness that, when you can figure out how to amplify and use these 7 triggers in your conversations, in your marketing, in your company, in your life with your children, you can start to create the kind of connection that's like falling in love. And every trigger creates a very specific response. So you don't randomly choose which trigger to use. You think about what kind of response you want to create with your target, and then you use the trigger based on that. And this is what happens when a product becomes fascinating. It goes from being pure utility. It no longer becomes about the rational benefits of what you're selling. It becomes about better relationships, greater admiration, higher loyalty, deeper trust, louder buzz, bigger profit, and you can start to charge a higher price because you're no longer competing on the basis of utility. Suddenly you're competing on the basis of so much more. And that's how fascination begins to add brand value. Great brands are built on the attraction that they create with consumers. So that something that starts out being utility suddenly becomes incredibly compelling. Because if you do that, if you try to create a rational benefit between you and your potential customer, or you and your vendors, or you and your employees, then they will only stay with you for rational reasons. If you're competing on the basis of price and you're the least expensive option, then that means as soon as somebody else comes in that's cheaper, then you're going to be gone. There's no loyalty in a world that's based on price. There's only loyalty in a world that's based on a relationship in which you add value in some other way that has a lot more to do with falling in love than with competing on the basis of price. In a competitive environment, the most fascinating option always wins. Always. With products, with companies, with people, with messages, with ideas. And this is what I really want you to get out of this. Being fascinating is not frivolous. This is not about being Britney Spears. It's not about Christmas lights. Being fascinating is the power to persuade. It's about creating messages that people not only listen to, but they act upon.
Now, the BBC just released a report. Because of the internet, the addictive nature of web browsing has left us with an attention span of 9 seconds, which is the same as a goldfish. So what this means is that your customer, your producer, The people that you're trying to attract as employees, the companies, the relationships that you want to be able to keep, they're goldfish. Our attention spans used to be 20 minutes long when we lived on the farm. 20 minutes long. 1 minute for every year that we are old. But then, over time, our attention spans got shorter and shorter and shorter. And then came along a little thing named the internet, which brought our attention spans down to this measly 9 seconds. So how can we compete in this 9-second world? This means you have 9 seconds when you're talking to a potential new customer or your existing customer. They're so distracted by everything that's going on between the emails and your competitors who have a nasty habit of trying to get their attention and all the other things that are going on in their world that you only get 9 seconds before their brains are going to try to decide whether or not they're going to pay attention. 9 seconds. You get 9 seconds to make an impression. So the question becomes, how can you get somebody's attention for that first 9 seconds? And the first thing to do is to start to think about your brand and start to think about what your brand that's not just different and better, but think about what is actually different. Now for me, for my brand, I was born with the ultimate competitive disadvantage. I mean, can you imagine? Seriously, can you imagine on the playground what it was like? I would come home from the playground and I would come in sobbing to my mom, Mrs. Hogshead. And I would say, I just want to marry a guy with the last name Smith or Jones. I wanted anything but Hogshead. My mom said something as I was sobbing in her lap that I'll never forget. She said, it's the thing about your name that makes it different that will one day make you love it. Of course, I didn't believe her at the time. But you know what? After I got up off that therapist couch from all the teething, she was right. And so today my business card says, a hogshead is a barrel that holds 62 gallons. So what's your last name, smartass? And as I began my career in advertising, I discovered the exact same thing is true in advertising and in branding. If you want to cut through in a cluttered environment, if you want to get somebody's attention immediately, and you don't have a huge budget, then you need to be the most fascinating. For all of us in our marketing, we have a choice. We can either have the biggest budget of anybody else in the category that we're competing against. We can either have the biggest budget, or we can be the most fascinating. Biggest budget, most fascinating, nothing in the middle. Raise your hand if you've ever consumed a shot of Jägermeister. Nice. Wait, no. Keep them up. Keep them up. Listen, if you're not so shy that you're willing to do Jägermeister, you'll keep your hands up. Now, okay, thank you. Now raise your hand if you like the taste of Jägermeister. So about 5% of the people who have consumed Jägermeister actually like the taste. I mean, think about this from a marketing perspective. This is a brand that's growing 40% a year since 1985. Sells 83 million bottles a year, and nobody likes the taste of it. I mean, how does this happen? In social media, when you have fascinating social media messages, people want to follow you, they want to share what you have to say, they want to be part of your discussion, and most of all, they want to buy from you. What we're going to be talking about today is not social media as a hobby. This isn't about trying to have fun with your friends by posting photographs of your kids or talking about what you did over the weekend. This is about driving bottom line sales. This is about getting new customers. This is about making your current customers more loyal. It's about understanding who you are for your customer in the marketplace. Sometimes being an underdog, it's not about being better. That there's a loophole in this whole thing we grew up in about the best idea always wins, the best person always wins. Sometimes, if you can harness something about yourself, if you can identify, to isolate a competitive advantage within yourself and then amplify it and express it in a way that other people can really get it, it's better than being the best. But you have to have the courage to be able to identify it and to own it and to express it. And I know that every single person in here, every company in here, has what it takes to be extraordinarily fascinating. I know that for a fact. The question is not, can you be more fascinating than your competitors who have bigger budgets? The question is, do you have the guts to own who you are, what you are, how you are in a way that they can't or won't?
Well, the reality is that if you're not eliciting a negative response from someone, then you're probably not that fascinating to anyone. And this is the thing I really, really want you to get, is that over here, you know, we all want to be loved, and we want our companies to be loved, and we want to create strong and immediate emotional reactions so that people bond with us. But in order to do that, we have to first create the strong reaction. And if you create a strong reaction of love, then conversely, an equal and opposite reaction, some of the people are not going to like that message, and you're going to get some people who are going to represent the haters. You're going to have the lovers over here, but the more that you get those lovers, those people who are your advocates, your evangelists, your loyalists, the people who aren't going to leave you, the people who are going to stick with you through the recession, in order to get them, you also are going to get a few of them. But what I really want to caution you against is this place right here in the middle. The middle is not caring. The middle is death. The middle is where employees don't care and they leave for the first job offer that they're going to get where they can get a better price, or your customers are going to leave because they can get just a little bit more convenient somewhere else. The middle is the dead zone. And what I want to encourage you is that the world is not changed by people who sort of care. So get out of the middle and start fascinating.